What's going on, beautiful people of the internet? My name is Ben, and I am here with my New York Mets 2020-21 off-season plan. With the 2020 season put to a close, the Mets look to bolster their team with new owner Steve Cohen and his deep pockets. With a new owner comes change, and Mets fans hope that Cohen can make the Mets into a yearly contender in the National League East. And looking at this team, I don't think they're far off from competing in the National League. But before we go into the plans of the off-season, let's talk about how the Mets got into this position. The Mets came into 2020 with high expectations as they were coming off a year where a lot of players had breakout seasons, such as Pete Alonso, J.D. Davis, Jeff McNeil, Amed Rosario, and Seth Lugo. Coupled with DeGrom having another Cy Young season as well as a second-half surge, the momentum they garnered was not enough for a postseason berth, as a faulty bullpen and players underperforming held the team back. The following offseason had the Mets looking to fill up their bullpen by bringing in Dellin Betances and re-signing Brad Brach. Michael Wacha and Rick Porcello joined the team to add some depth, and that's about it. The rest of the thought process was hoping that Edwin Diaz and Robinson Cano would have bounce-back seasons and that the rest of the roster would have the same level of production or take a step forward. New skipper Luis Rojas was given the keys to the team as the eruption of the Astros cheating scandal cost Carlos Beltran the job as manager. And then
Major League Baseball will, in fact, suspend all operations indefinitely. Of course, a lot of questions. What does that mean? We do not have those details at this time, but we can tell.
The COVID-19 pandemic put baseball on hiatus for months, and thus regulated to a 60-game regular season schedule. Along with that, Major League Baseball introduced some new rules going into the season, such as a universal DH, extra inning rules, expanded roster, and having 8 teams per league make the playoffs. And many believe that the Mets were talented enough to land in one of those 8 spots. Unfortunately, things didn't go as planned, as before the season, Noah Syndergaard injured his elbow and required Tommy John surgery, and right before the season started, Marcus Stroman opted out, and the Mets could never get on track throughout the season. Now, there were some bright spots for the team. Jacob deGrom had another Cy Young caliber season. Dominic Smith took a major step in his development. Michael Conforto had a career year. David Peterson proved to be a solid big league pitcher. And both Diaz and Cano had bounce-back seasons. Unfortunately, there was plenty of bad for this team. Besides deGrom, there was no other consistent performer in the starting rotation. And outside of Diaz, the bullpen wasn't that good either. Dellin Betances was extremely disappointing, and Seth Lugo bouncing from the rotation and the bullpen wasn't super consistent. And when you look on the holes on this team, you see that pitching depth is a huge question mark, as well as finding a full-time catcher and finding positions for players already on the team. The first thing I would do in this offseason is to go after Trevor Bauer. Now, Bauer is one of the most polarizing players in baseball. The man has a very vocal opinion about how the game is being played today. He has challenged Rob Manfred on many occasions on his decision making, and many media members are very skeptical on Bauer joining the Mets. However, this is something I'm personally comfortable dealing with because Bauer has been healthy throughout his entire career, and he is coming off a year where he's the frontrunner for the Cy Young Award. He figured out how to balance his media company and his performance on the field. With him and deGrom, you will have one of the best, if not the best, 1-2 punch in baseball. However, the rotation does need more, and this leads into another problem for the team. The game has turned into positionless baseball, where players are brought up playing multiple positions. The Rays were famous for creating this style of play, and the rest of the league caught on to this. When you look at the Mets, you have 4 full-time players who don't have a position in Dominic Smith, Jeff McNeil, Amed Rosario, and J.D. Davis. 2021 will not have the DH in the National League, and that puts the Mets in a very interesting situation because Pete Alonso does not have the versatility to play anywhere else but first, and you would have to move Dominic Smith to left. And if that's the case, where do you put Jeff McNeil and J.D. Davis? Now, the obvious answer is third base, but McNeil wasn't a good defender at third, and Davis is a slight upgrade from McNeil. I do believe you could trade one of those 2 players, but that leaves the Andres Gimenez-Amed Rosario debate. Personally, I am a big fan of Gimenez because his defense is much better than Rosario, and he was pretty solid with the bat in his short time in the big leagues. And unfortunately for Rosario, he took a major step back in his development. And as it currently stands right now, The defense on this team is not very strong. However, I do think I have a solution via the trade market. Now, full disclaimer, I like Brandon Nimmo. He's a great clubhouse guy, he always hustles, and I do believe he can be an all-star one year. However, his defense took a nosedive, and I would be in favor of using him in a trade package to the Cleveland Indians for Carlos Carrasco. The Indians struggled offensively last year, especially in the outfield, and with the development of Zach Plesac, Tristan McKenzie, and of course Shane Bieber, the Indians could use Carrasco as trade bait. Packaging Nimmo, Rosario, and possibly Davis or McNeil, I do believe that will be enough to acquire Carrasco, and having a top three of DeGrom, Bauer, and Carrasco would be a dominant 1-2-3 for the Mets. The free agent market is where I would go to replace the rest of the holes, starting with the catcher spot. At the top of the free agency pool is former Phillies catcher JT Realmuto. Many Mets fans are dreaming of the possibility of Realmuto behind the plate, but let me ask you, is he worth it? Reports are coming out that he wants at least $200 million, and for a catcher going into his 30s, that's a huge risk, and the back end of that contract could be disastrous. I believe that James McCann would be a better fit for the Mets. If you look at both of their past seasons, they compare pretty well with each other, even on the defensive end. The numbers show that these two players aren't too far apart from one another. I do realize that Cohen has a lot of money in the bank, but it doesn't mean that he has to spend it unwisely. There are more holes on the team besides catcher. McCann won't be cheap, but he'll be a better value than Realmuto. A great replacement for Nimmo would be Jackie Bradley Jr. Bradley has been a stud in the outfield for the past couple of years, especially on the defensive end, and has been solid offensively as well. And to finish out the roster, I would put Lugo back in the pen and go after Robbie Ray as a spot starter / bullpen piece, and go for big bullpen players such as Brad Hand, Blake Treinen, and Shane Green. I would also bring back Justin Wilson and sign Darren O'Day as depth pieces. Charlie Morton and Masahiro Tanaka would be great fourth options for this team as we wait for Noah Syndergaard to return to the rotation. And that is my Mets 2020-21 offseason plan. This is an exciting time for Mets fans. The Cohen era has officially begun, and all of baseball is waiting with anticipation to see if the Mets can be a big market team again. I hope you all enjoyed my offseason breakdown. Please let me know in the comments your thoughts and opinions down below. I hope you all have a great day and take care.